Hey YouTube, how are you doing? I hope you guys are doing well. Today we are going to be watching Everytime Saul was Slipping Jimmy in Better Call Saul. And if you guys have watched my Reggie video, did you guys know that I tried to react to a Breaking Bad one, but I forgot to unmute the desktop audio. So instead of redoing that, I'm just going to watch something else. Because, yeah. Anyway, if you guys enjoy, please check out TV Junkie. The other Breaking Bad video I watched was great. So, if you like Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, please check him out. And if you enjoy my reaction of it, a like and subscription would be really appreciated. But no hassle. No hassle. And I hope you enjoy most of all. And let's get into it.
From using fake letters to save Huel from jail, to selling a quarter coin for $100.
Hey, I got 110 right here. Sold. No!
Here is every time we got to witness Saul being Slippin' Jimmy. Starting with
Slippin' Jimmy.
The original Slippin' Jimmy. Alright, so the root of Jimmy's morally flexible
Precious Jimmy couldn't keep his hands out of Dad's drawer. Oh, but it couldn't be Precious Jimmy.
lifestyle went back much further than most people ever realized. It started with his father's small corner store in Cicero, where as a young boy, Jimmy watched his dad get conned out of money daily by every sob story that walked through the door. Even I scammed him at one point. One afternoon, a con artist entered the shop and easily tricked Jimmy's father out of some cash.
But if you could possibly just spare $5 instead.
When the man saw Jimmy watching, he looked the boy right in the eye and gave him a piece of advice that changed his world forever.
There are wolves and sheep in this world, kid. Wolves and sheep. Figure out which one you're gonna be.
That line stuck with Jimmy. He looked at his hardworking, penniless father and then at the open cash register. He reached in, took a handful of bills for himself, and chose to be the wolf. By the time he was a young man, Jimmy had become a local legend in Cicero. For scouting out businesses that had icy sidewalks or wet floors, Jimmy would wait for the right moment and take a hard fall on purpose to make it look like a total accident because he just wanted a quick, out-of-court insurance settlement to line his pockets. It was a low-level hustle, but it started a lifelong habit of bending the rules to find the easy way out. But Jimmy's scams got a lot more creative when he teamed up with his best friend Marco.
That was such a go-to door. That was so schemy. It's so good. It's such a good dynamic, and the show in general is just really good. If you're looking for a new show and you haven't watched Better Call Saul, highly recommend it. Even if you have, watch it again.
The found Rolex. Jimmy and a guy named
yes.
Stevie were walking through a dark Chicago alley when they spotted a man passed out behind some trash. Jimmy poked the man with a stick to see if he was okay, but the stranger woke up just long enough to shout an insult before falling back into a deep sleep. Stevie was annoyed by the guy's attitude, so he reached down and snatched the cash straight out of the man's wallet as a tax for the rudeness. But while Stevie was busy with the wallet, Jimmy's eyes went wide. He spotted something much more valuable on the man's wrist, a Rolex.
I got dibs on that watch, man.
As soon as Stevie saw the gold watch, his greed took over. He wanted that Rolex for himself, so he offered to trade Jimmy all the cash he had, just stolen from the wallet. Jimmy hesitated and played it cool, acting like the watch was a once-in-a-lifetime find that was worth way more than a couple of crumpled-up bills. So to finish the deal, good old Stevie reached into his own pocket and offered an extra $580 just to get his hands on the watch. Jimmy took the money, handed over the Rolex, and they both went their separate ways. But the moment Stevie was
Such a creative scam. That is so creative.
out of sight, the drunk man stood right up. What Stevie didn't know was that it was Marco, Jimmy's friend, and the whole thing, it was a performance. The watch was a cheap $5 fake, and Jimmy and Marco walked away with over $1,500 of Stevie's cash. But while a fake watch was enough to fool a greedy stranger, Jimmy knew that the best way to catch a mark was to use something even smaller and more believable. The Kennedy
coin.
half dollar. Jimmy and Marco were sitting at a bar and waiting for a wealthy businessman to sit nearby, and Jimmy found a 1964 Kennedy half dollar in his pocket change and started talking loud enough for the man to overhear.
Assassinated, right?
Jimmy told a story about a worker at the Denver Mint who was upset about JFK's assassination. He claimed the worker secretly flipped the design so Kennedy's face pointed west instead of east. He told Marco that only a few hundred of these mistake coins exist, making them worth $800 each.
The Mint struck about 3,000 of these before they figured it out. They canned the guy.
And to make the mark even more interested, Jimmy pretended to be broke and offered to sell the rare coin to Marco for only $100. To finish the setup, Jimmy went to the bathroom and left the coin on the bar. While he was gone, Marco acted skeptical and asked the businessman for his opinion. Marco even staged a fake phone call to a coin expert like he was Rick Harrison from Pawn Stars, who confirmed the coin was a legendary rarity. By the time Jimmy returned to the table, the businessman was convinced that he could make a profit.
Jesus, no kidding.
Oh, listen, I gotta go, all right?
When Marco hesitated to buy the coin, the businessman jumped in and offered Jimmy $110 cash right on the spot.
Hey, I got 110 right here. Sold.
Jimmy acted like he didn't want to sell it to a stranger, but eventually took the money. The man rushed out of the bar thinking he just made a $700 profit, but in reality, he just paid over $100 for a normal 50-cent coin. Jimmy, he eventually left those small-time Chicago scams.
Now that wasn't that one during like this, like his lawyer era? I don't know.
For a new life in Albuquerque.
I think he went back and they did that coin scheme. Didn't they? That's what they did.
But it didn't take long for him to use those same street tricks to try and land his first big client.
Oh, yes.
The skateboarding twins. By the time
yeah.
Jimmy moved over to ABQ, he was desperate for work. He decided to stage a hero moment, hoping a fake rescue would go viral and put his name in the headlines. So he was driving down the road, lost in thought about how to find a client, when suddenly two teenagers on skateboards slammed into his...
That was a jump scare. Watching it now, I remember it was a jump scare.
windshield. It looked like a horrific incident, and the twins, Cal and Lars, immediately began screaming about broken bones and demanding cash. But Jimmy didn't panic. Instead, he recognized the move instantly because it was the same exact scam that he used to pull back in Cicero.
The only way that entire car is worth $500 is if there's a $300 hooker sitting in it.
Instead of scaring him off, though, Jimmy realized these two were the perfect tools for his plan. He tracked them down and offered the twins $2,000 to stage an accident with Betsy Kellerman's station wagon. The plan was simple. One twin would get hit, and Jimmy would happen to be nearby to play the hero and win the Kettleman's trust. However,
yeah, this was for the Kettleman. Oh yeah.
Apart immediately. The twins spotted a similar-looking car and executed the hit, but the driver didn't stop. The twins chased the car down, thinking a hit-and-run meant a bigger payday. They followed the car to a house and confronted the driver.
Oh, Abuelita.
Who turned out to be an elderly woman.
Abuelita.
Jimmy arrived at the crib moments later and realized they had targeted the wrong vehicle. When he knocked on the door to smooth things over, instead of finding a scared housewife, he found Tuco Salamanca pointing a revolver at his face.
That is a mean revolver, man. That I wouldn't want to be hit with one of those or any gun in that matter, but definitely not that one. That thing's got to pack a punch.
The situation turned deadly as Tuco dragged all three of them out into the middle of the desert. Tuco was convinced that they were secret agents.
Oh, this was such a good play on like Saul's behalf.
Or members of a
like he like pulled out every trick to like get himself out of that situation.
rival gang. While the twins were scared.
Like he's a criminal lawyer. A criminal lawyer.
Tied up, crying and screaming in terror, Jimmy had to dig deep into his bag of tricks just to stay alive, guys. He stood in the dirt and used his lawyer talk to negotiate with a psychopath while a shallow grave waited for them. He eventually did manage to convince Tuco that he got him down from death sentence to a 6-month probation. He's the best lawyer ever. Just a lawyer, and that the twins were just dumb kids who made a mistake. In a masterclass of fast talking, Jimmy managed to talk Tuco down from a death sentence to a fair punishment, breaking one leg for each twin. But Jimmy then realized that if he wanted to get clients, he needed to pull a stunt the whole city could see.
A man just doesn't happen to fall like that. Okay, why is he kind of looks like Adam Sandler there.
The billboard rescue. So the perfect
a man just doesn't happen to fall like that. He orchestrated it. Jimmy!
Opportunity came when Howard Hamlin forced Jimmy to change the name of his law practice. Jimmy thought Howard was just being a bully, so he decided to strike back with a massive stunt. He used the bribe money he took from the Kettlemans to buy a billboard that mocked Howard by copying HHM's branding, even dressing up in a matching suit to complete the look.
He's really forcing my hand here.
As Jimmy expected, Howard sued for trademark infringement. A judge sided with HHM and ordered Jimmy to take the billboard down within 48 hours.
Using this particular font for 12 years now, and it, in concert with our tri-rectangle graphic and Hamlindigo blue, constitutes a trademark brand identifier.
But instead of being upset, Jimmy used the court order as an opportunity to turn himself into a local hero. He fired a student film crew to record a video plea, pretending to be a victim of a corporate giant.
So, Saul is like, in my opinion, Saul is the main character of the Better Call Saul, of like the Breaking Bad universe. Him and Jesse. Them all, in my opinion. They have like so much lore to them.
During the film,
Like, Walt is just like the protagonist, antagonist.
the worker removing the sign slipped and dangled from his safety harness, air quotes around slipped, and Jimmy panicked, air quotes around panicked, and climbed the billboard
He orchestrated it.
to pull the man to safety while the cameras captured every second. The footage had aired on every local news station, and Jimmy's phone immediately started blowing up with new clients. Hey, can you help me out? But you see, the entire accident was a total fraud. Jimmy was caught on camera glancing over his shoulder multiple times, waiting for the worker to take his cue. Once they were safe, the worker even complained that,
You okay? Took you long enough?
the billboard stunt finally made Jimmy a hero in the eyes of the public. He had successfully fooled
He's my hero. I'd have him as my lawyer.
the entire city. But his next scam was just about seeing if he could still pull off a con for the fun of it. The Zafiro Añejo. After Jimmy
Zafiro
walked away
Añejo.
from a massive job opportunity,
Okay, I'm gonna rewind here. Where do I go
he
get
could
dinner?
still pull off a con for the
Hold
fun
up.
of it. The
Okay, I'm gonna go get dinner. Be back. Got my dinner.
Zafiro Añejo. After Jimmy walked away from a massive job opportunity at Davis in Maine, he decided to spend his time relaxing at a posh hotel pool when Kim Wexler confronted him about throwing away his career.
Clearly explain to me why you walked out on the best job opportunity of your life.
Jimmy explained that he was tired of living by Chuck's rules and just wanted to be himself. To prove how much fun being himself could be, he looked over at an arrogant man named Ken sitting at the bar and bet Kim that he could get the guy to buy them the most expensive drinks in the house. Kim, she was skeptical, but she eventually agreed to play along. The target was an obnoxious wealth manager named Ken, who was loudly boasting into a Bluetooth earpiece at the hotel bar. Jimmy and Kim approached him, posing as siblings named Victor and Giselle St. Clair. They claimed
This was such a funny like scam. This was this was so fun to watch.
that they just inherited $1.4 million and needed expert investment advice.
Hey, buddy, could you settle a bet for us?
As Ken started his sales pitch, Jimmy and Kim manipulated him into ordering a bottle of Zafiro Añejo, an ultra-premium tequila bottle that cost like $50 per shot. Over several hours, they drank the entire bottle while Ken explained how he would grow their fictitious fortune. To seal the deal, Jimmy and Kim even signed a fake investment contract. When the bill finally arrived, Jimmy pretended to reach for his wallet, but Ken, thinking he had just secured $1 million client, insisted on paying the massive tab himself. I've got it, he said. Jimmy and Kim thanked him and then slipped out of the bar before Ken could see the total. Then outside, the two laughed
He's so
over the
slippery.
thrill of the
Jimmy is so
scam.
slippery.
Jimmy balled up the fake contract and threw it into the trash, but Kim kept the elaborate agave-shaped bottle opener as a souvenir. You see that a lot in the series. However, Jimmy's talent for making up wild stories on the fly was about to be tested in a much weirder way when he had to save a client from the police.
Oh yeah.
Squat Cobbler. One of Jimmy's most absurd cons started
What?
with
What was it?
the Squat Cobbler.
Oh, squawk.
One of Jimmy-
Okay. This. No. Okay, forget Añejo. This. This was the funniest. This was the funniest bit. Like, this is definitely the funniest part of the show.
His most absurd con started when a small-time pill dealer named Daniel Wormold ignored Mike's advice. You never ignore Mike's advice, people. You see, Daniel bought a flashy, obnoxious yellow Hummer with his drug money. Mike warned him it would draw too much attention, but Daniel was so arrogant that he fired Mike and went to a drug deal alone. As Mike predicted,
Well, that's
Daniel's
true.
flashy lifestyle led to his house being robbed by Nacho Varga. Instead of keeping quiet, Daniel made
Nacho, the best Better Call Saul. Second best Better Call Saul character, in my opinion. Actually, not. You know, probably third best. Nacho, Kim, and Saul.
the mistake of calling the police to report his stolen baseball cards.
Oh my god.
It's me. I got a new car. You like it?
When the police arrived, they were immediately suspicious. They noticed the thieves left behind expensive electronics and only took the cards.
Left the TV. Left the computer, right?
They eventually found a secret compartment hidden behind a baseboard and called Daniel in for questioning. Mike intervened and brought in Jimmy, who realized the detectives weren't buying Daniel's nervous excuses. To save his client, Jimmy improvised a story so bizarre and embarrassing that the police actually believed it. He claimed the hidden compartment wasn't for drugs, but for squat cobbler videos, a fake, gross fetish involving Daniel sitting on pies.
Cobbler. Full moon pie. He sits in a pie. And he wiggles around.
Jimmy described the fetish in such disgusting detail that the detectives became visibly uncomfortable. But to seal the deal, Jimmy actually had to provide proof. He went to the store, bought a dozen pies, and filmed a fake video of Daniel actually sitting on them so he could hand over a copy to the police. The cops were so disgusted that they dropped the investigation immediately just to avoid seeing any more of it. Later, when Jimmy bragged about the scam to Kim, she was horrified that he fabricated evidence and risked his law license for a cheap trick.
You fabricated evidence?
She warned him never to tell her about his illegal activities again, marking the first real crack in their relationship due to Jimmy's Slippin' Jimmy instincts.
Oh, yeah.
But while Kim was worried about his law license, Jimmy was already planning a much darker con that would target his own brother.
He orchestrated it.
The 12-16 switch.
Oh,
You see, Kim had worked
this was smart.
tirelessly to land Mesa Verde as a client for HHM, hoping it would get her out of the doghouse after she was punished for Jimmy's behavior. But even after she secured the massive account, Howard still refused to let her work on the case. Realizing she would never get a fair shot at HHM, she decided to quit and start her own firm, taking Mesa Verde with her. She felt she had earned the account, but Chuck wasn't about to let her leave with such a big prize. Even though he was ill, Chuck dragged himself into the office and gave a brilliant presentation to the bank's executives.
I read FEC and ISO reports for entertainment.
He does.
Well, I try to stay up on things. The rules are changing all the time. With everything that's happened with Enron and WorldCom, the government is extra vigilant.
He used his legendary reputation and his history with the bank to convince them to stay with HHM, effectively stealing the account back from Kim.
Ugh.
But watching Kim lose everything she worked for pushed Jimmy to hit Chuck exactly where it hurt: his professional reputation.
Yep.
Jimmy waited for Chuck to fall asleep before sneaking into his house and stole the Mesa Verde files. He took the documents to a 24-hour copy shop and spent the entire night using a knife and glue to meticulously swap 2 digits. He changed the address from 1261 Rosella Drive to 1216 on every single page.
That was
It
genius.
worked perfectly during the high-stakes banking board hearing. Chuck confidently presented the files, only for the judges to point out that the address was wrong.
If you double check, you'll see that 1216 is correct.
Even then, Chuck kept arguing back confidently because he remembered the actual numbers. But all it did was make Chuck look like he wasn't mentally in the right place. Later, while Chuck and Howard were dealing with the fallout, Jimmy sneaked back into Chuck's house and swapped the forged files back to the originals. Then, when a panicked Chuck returned home to check his work, he found only the correct 1261 address in his files. To finish the cover-up, Jimmy even bribed the copy shop clerk to lie and delete the security footage. This con successfully won the Mesa Verde account back for Kim, but it also fueled Chuck's obsession with proving Jimmy was a criminal. It was a masterclass, guys, in gaslighting that ultimately set the stage for the final, tragic confrontation between the two brothers. The battery trick. So when Chuck finally figured out that Jimmy had swapped the numbers on the Mesa Verde files, he
All these like schemes, they're so well done. Like, I could never even think about 1% of these. These are so smart.
decided to take his revenge. He began acting unstable, covering his living room in space blankets and pretending he was falling apart over his mistake. Feeling guilty, Jimmy rushed to his brother's side and admitted everything, explaining exactly how he changed 1261 to 1216, but Chuck had hidden a tape recorder in the room and captured every word of the confession.
I changed 1261 to 1216. It was me. It all went down exactly like you said.
Chuck then used that tape to set a trap by making sure Jimmy found out it existed. He manipulated a temp named Ernie, my boy, into hearing a snippet of the confession, knowing Ernie was too loyal to keep it a secret from Jimmy. The plan worked perfectly, and when Jimmy heard his brother had him on tape, he lost his cool. He showed up at Chuck's house in broad daylight, kicked down the door, and destroyed the tape right in front of Chuck and two hidden witnesses.
Jimmy! Jimmy! That's enough!
Jimmy was arrested and faced a disbarment hearing that could end his career. So to survive, he built his own trap. Jimmy reached out to a contact to find someone with magic fingers, and that was how we met Huel Babineau.
You gotta fit him in a tight space?
This was actually the start of a long partnership between the two. He hired Huel to accidentally bump into Chuck on the courthouse stairs. At the same time, Jimmy brought in Chuck's ex-wife, Rebecca, to rattle him emotionally and make him even more defensive. During the hearing, Chuck insisted his allergy to electricity was a physical reality. This led to one of the most intense moments in legal history. Jimmy challenged Chuck by pulling a cell phone out of his pocket while standing right next to him.
Jimmy, do you have something in your pocket?
Chuck, he laughed it off, correctly guessing that Jimmy had removed the battery. But then, Jimmy asked Chuck to reach into his own breast pocket.
Could you reach into your breast pocket and tell me what's there?
Chuck pulled out a fully charged cell phone battery. He had been carrying it right against his heart for nearly 2 hours and hadn't felt a thing. That's when Chuck snapped and started listing Jimmy's past crimes, proving to everyone in the room that he was mentally unstable. That was the moment everyone in the room realized Chuck was mentally unstable. Jimmy saved his law license, but he wasn't done. In a final Slippin' Jimmy move, he went to the malpractice insurance company and accidentally let slip that Chuck was mentally ill. This caused Chuck's insurance rates to skyrocket, which eventually forced him out of his own law firm. Jimmy had finally beaten his brother, but he was suspended from practicing law for a year and was completely broke.
Like, Chuck was a bad dude, but he was committed to law. He was committed to the law. And goodness. And well, that didn't turn out too well for him.
Desperate for cash, he stopped caring about who he hurt and set his sights on an easy target, a group of helpless seniors. The Irene conspiracy.
Oh,
so when
no.
Jimmy discovered that a quick settlement in the sand...
I hated this one. I hated this one. This one was so... Saul is like my favorite character in the show, but I did not like him for doing this. I did not like him for doing this one bit.
Piper case would net him, I don't know, like $1.16 million referral fee. Jimmy knew he couldn't legally advise Irene to settle, so he used social engineering to destroy her life. He bought Irene expensive new walking shoes and then suddenly pointed them out to her friends, making them think Irene was spending settlement money that they hadn't received yet. He went as far as rigging a bingo game. That's sacred to old people. He used magnetic balls to ensure Irene won, knowing that in the elderly community, winning multiple times is seen as hogging the luck. When the room went silent and her friends refused to applaud, a heartbroken Irene left in tears.
Aww.
Jimmy, he then suggested that her friends were only frustrated because she was holding up the settlement, and the plan worked, and Irene agreed to settle just to get her friends back. But seeing Irene's total isolation, it caused Jimmy a rare moment of genuine guilt. He realized he had to fix it, but he knew the ladies wouldn't believe him if he just apologized. Instead, he staged a confrontation with Erin Brill, I love her, from Davis in Maine during a chair yoga session. Jimmy, he accidentally left his wireless microphone on while walking into the hallway with Erin. He bragged about how easy it was to trick the old folks and admitted he only used Irene for the money.
Does she know how much money you're gonna make from this?
The plan worked as the residents heard every word through the speakers, but it backfired on Jimmy's wallet. The residents reconciled with Irene, and she immediately followed her lawyer's original advice to reject the early settlement. Jimmy walked away with zero payout, and his reputation in elder law, it was permanently destroyed. But at least he did what was right by Irene. But while Jimmy was losing friends at the retirement home, he was about to go to extreme lengths to save Huel. The Huel letters.
Oh,
okay, guys,
yes.
So the plan to save Huel was one of the
Did you arrest Santa Claus? I've got a 500 million letters here.
most creative scams Jimmy ever pulled. It all started when Jimmy was selling burner phones on a street corner. A cop named Dave Platt approached him and ordered him to move. While Jimmy was busy arguing with the cop, Huel walked up wearing headphones since he couldn't hear what was actually happening, and he thought Jimmy was being attacked and swung a heavy bag of sandwiches, knocking the officer out cold. But since Huel had a criminal record, the prosecutor refused to go easy on him and pushed for a sentence of up to 2.5 years. Huel was terrified of going back to jail, and he planned to run. He even doubted Jimmy could help him, asking,
How you gonna do that? You ain't even a lawyer.
Jimmy just looked at him and replied,
I don't need to be a lawyer, all right? I'm a magic man.
Kim eventually stepped in to help, but Jimmy's magic was the secret weapon.
I don't know, maybe there is something I can do. Maybe.
Jimmy took a cross-country bus to Huel's hometown of Coushatta, Louisiana to set a trap. During the long ride, he paid the other passengers to help him write hundreds of fake fan mail letters to the judge. He made sure they used different pens and different styles of handwriting so the mail looked like it came from an entire town of people who loved Huel. Jimmy hopped off in Coushatta just long enough to mail the letters, ensuring they all had a local postmark. Back in Albuquerque, he turned his office into a fake call center filled with burner phones and launched a phony church website. He hired his film crew, the kids with no names, to answer the lines and pretend to be residents who viewed Huel as a local hero.
Sweet and kind with all those lies.
When the prosecutor called the numbers to check if the letters were real, she reached Jimmy's team. Jimmy even posed as Pastor Hansford, using a thick Cajun accent and playing a CD of organ music in the background.
What kind of person would you say Mr. Babineau is?
Well, I say he's a lovely person, both inside and out.
He told a wild story about Huel saving elderly people from a burning church, making him sound like a saint. The mountain of mall and threat of a PR nightmare forced the judge to step in. He ordered the prosecutor to make a deal, and Huel walked away with just 4 months of probation.
Well done, Magic Man. We're just getting started.
But his next challenge would test his partnership with Kim as they teamed up to take on her biggest client, full-scale legal war. The Mesa Verde siege. The conflict began when Mesa Verde Bank tried to kick an old man named Everett Acker off of his land.
Is that a man fucking a horse?
And to build a huge new call center. While Kim was legally required to represent the bank, she secretly wanted to help the old man stay in his house. So she recruited good old Jimmy to act as Acker's lawyer. But Jimmy took the Slippin' Jimmy playbook much further than she ever expected. Jimmy met Acker, a stubborn man who hated fancy suit lawyers, and realized he needed a different approach to win him over. So Jimmy showed him a drawing of a man and a horse to represent how the bank treats its clients.
Man fucking a horse.
I hate Mesa Verde. I hate them. Look, picture me as the man and Mesa Verde as the horse.
And this worked, and Acker hired him on the spot. To stop the bulldozers, Jimmy began a campaign of total chaos. First, he tricked a sheriff's deputy into believing the eviction notice had the wrong address, forcing a delay.
Can you make out the address on that? 1130 Arroyo Vista. Is there a problem? Well, I mean, is that where we are?
Then he smashed thrift store pottery and buried the pieces in the dirt, claiming the yard was a protected Native American site.
So what about it, Doctor?
How long is this going to take?
A day or two, a week at the most.
When that didn't work, he kept digging into his bag of tricks. He planted fake radioactive markers to scare the construction crew, and even used a stencil to create a miraculous image of Jesus on a fence to attract crowds of worshipers, which is insane if you think about that for a second. And every time the bank tried to move forward, Jimmy found a new way to say, not today. The pressure, it peaked during the settlement meeting at the law firm. Kimmy and Jim had agreed on a plan to settle for $75,000, but Jimmy went rogue. He barged into the room and stunned everyone by demanding a ridiculous $4 million. To humiliate the bank's owner, Kevin Wachtel, Jimmy played a series of low-budget commercials which featured personal attacks against him.
President of Mesa Verde.
He then revealed his biggest leverage: the bank's cowboy logo was actually stolen from a photograph by a Native American artist. Jimmy threatened an injunction that would force the bank to pull the branding from every building and credit card that they own.
You don't own the rights to it. That's copyright infringement.
You'll never be able to prove that.
Kevin realized he had no choice, and he met Jimmy in a parking garage to settle the matter personally. He agreed to a simple handshake deal. Hacker got to keep his home, received $75,000, and the bank paid the original artist $200K. After successfully bullying a major bank into a corner, he then used those same dirty tactics to finally take down Howard Hamlin.
Oh, that Howard is just a sad one. Howard, he didn't deserve what happened.
The D-Day plan. All right, y'all, so the plot to destroy Howard Hamlin was
it's
the
the
darkest and most
episode.
complex trap that Jimmy and Kim ever built. Howard had spent years trying to be the bigger person, even offering Jimmy a job as a peace offering. But Jimmy blamed Howard for Chuck's downfall and started harassing him just for fun by throwing bowling balls at his car. After that, when he helped two prostitutes with their legal issues, Saul sent them to disrupt Howard's lunch with Clifford May. But what started as a few mean jokes soon turned into a professional hit. Jimmy and Kim sat in a hotel bar laughing as they tossed ideas back and forth about how to take Howard down.
Suppose, I'm just brainstorming here, but suppose we slip him a Mickey, and then while he's out, we get out the old electric clippers, shave him bald.
Kim joked about how if Howard ever did something really bad, the Sandpiper case would have to settle immediately. And in that moment, they both kind of brushed it off.
Forget it. Okay.
But what started as a silly conversation slowly turned into a real plan. They realized that if they could make Howard look unstable, the settlement would be forced through, and they'd walk away with their Sandpiper payday.
The Howard thing. What were you thinking?
So the first step was Jimmy planting a small bag of fake cocaine inside of Howard's locker at the Santa Fe Country Club. And just as they had planned, Cliff Main saw everything.
Fair enough.
Howard?
What?
You dropped something.
This can't be.
Sure looks like it.
Really?
It was
Should we take a sniff and find out?
just enough to plant the seed in Cliff's mind about Howard's use. And from there, they convinced the Kettlemans to meet with Cliff and explain how Howard lost them their case because he used drugs.
Cocaine.
Howard Hamlin. He is living a life outside his life.
Yes, he is.
As they sometimes say.
Yeah.
I mean,
As they
it's pretty
sometimes
much
say.
common knowledge out in the yard.
Yeah.
Common knowledge out in the yard.
Yeah. Those drug people can spot each other a mile away.
They just know.
Yeah.
They
But
just
if that
know.
wasn't nearly enough.
Oh my.
Jimmy used a spray tan and a suit to disguise himself as Howard and stole Howard's car while he was getting therapy. Jimmy then picked up Wendy and threw her out of the moving car right in front of Cliff.
You can't skimp on the support staff. They're the beating heart of the operation. I know that's true in our office. Jesus.
With Cliff already suspicious, the final trap was set for the day of the Sandpiper mediation. They hired a look-alike to pose as Judge Rand Casimiro and staged a fake bribe. They even went as far as to coat the photos with drugs to make Howard's pupils dilate during mediation.
Howard didn't deserve this. He didn't deserve any of this.
Don't worry about it. You need to know on this one.
Jimmy set the trap by making sure Howard hired a fake private investigator. He called Howard's usual PI agency and tracked them into changing the contact number for Howard's case. He swapped the real investigator's number with a line that went straight to one of his own associates. This meant every update Howard received was actually a lie fed to him by Jimmy. The fake investigator was the one who delivered the staged photos to Howard's office right before the meeting, ensuring Howard walked right into the trap. At first, Howard didn't think much of them, but when mediation finally began and Howard saw Judge Casimiro walk in wearing the exact clothes from the photos, everything clicked. Howard confronted Casimiro about the bribe, and when the pictures were shown, they had already been swapped with an innocent shot of Jimmy handing a frisbee to a jogger.
Snuck in somehow, and these are not the pictures I saw.
Mr. Hamlin, are you all right? Your eyes.
I am fine.
Howard, he started to look unstable, high, and paranoid.
Aw.
And the Sandpiper settlement was pushed through immediately. And that humiliation led him straight to Jimmy and Kim's apartment that night.
Oh.
I thought you did it for the money, but now it's
Shit.
it's so clear. Screw the money. You did it for fun. You get off.
Ah.
But as Howard was venting his rage, Lalo Salamanca stepped out of the shadows. And before Howard could even realize he was in danger, Lalo shot him right in the head.
I think I'm in the middle of something.
This was the moment Jimmy's life as a colorful lawyer ended. The blood on the floor was the real-world cost of his scams, and it forced him to fully embrace the Saul Goodman persona to survive the nightmare he helped create. After Howard's death, Jimmy fully transformed into the Saul Goodman we know from Breaking Bad. He took his Slippin' Jimmy tricks to a whole new level, eventually pulling off a classic scam to help out a new client named Walter White.
Mr. White.
The Jimmy In-N-Out scheme. When Badger was caught in a sting operation selling blue meth to an undercover cop, Walt and Jesse were backed into a corner. The DEA gave Badger an ultimatum: give up Heisenberg or go to prison.
What color hair? No hair. Dude's balder than you.
Walt and Jesse couldn't kill Badger, but they couldn't let him talk either. So Walt and Jesse first tried to bribe Saul, but when he refused, they kidnapped him and took him to a grave in the desert to threaten him. That's when Saul provided them with a solution. He suggested providing the DEA with a Heisenberg they could actually catch. He introduced Walt and Jesse to James Kilkelly, better known as Jimmy In-N-Out. Kilkelly was a professional fall guy who had spent most of his life behind bars and actually preferred living in prison. And for a price, he was willing to take the rap for anyone.
And here he is.
Wait, but wouldn't the police like know, like who he is? Like, you've been in and out of here quite a lot. You've been in and out quite a lot.
Today, better known as Jimmy In-N-Out. City, state, and federal, he's spent 44 of the last 58 years inside.
Damn.
Entire life behind bars.
The DEA set up a massive sting operation at a park, but the plan almost turned into a disaster when Badger sat on the wrong bench next to a random bald businessman.
Okay, let's do this.
Walt had to use his car to block the DEA's line of sight so Jesse could run out and point Badger to the right bench. Once Badger moved to the right bench, the DEA swarmed in and arrested Jimmy. The DEA got their win, Badger got his freedom, and Walt's identity stayed a secret. Saul had saved Walter White and Jesse Pinkman from the law, but his next move was a personal favor for Jesse.
For Jesse?
Getting Jesse his house. After Jesse's parents discovered
yes.
his meth lab in the basement, they evicted him and spent a fortune renovating the property, scrubbing away the stains of Jesse's past to flip the house for a massive profit. They thought they were finally done with their son's criminal world, but Jimmy was about to show them that Jesse's past was actually his biggest leverage. Saul called up a meeting with the Pinkmans and their lawyer, acting as a representative for an anonymous buyer. He started the meeting by making sure to ask if they were comfortable with a fast, all-cash transaction.
This individual wants to buy your house today for cash.
The Pinkmans quickly agreed since they thought they were able to get a huge payday without any hassle. But once he had them hooked on the idea of easy money, Saul immediately sucked the air out of the room with his lowball offer. When they laughed at the price and were about to walk out, Saul dropped the hammer. He pointed out the house had been used to manufacture meth, and the Pinkmans had failed to disclose that in the legal filings.
I don't see any mention of a meth lab, no. Oh, you got your termite inspection. That's good.
When Saul threatened to tie their property up in lawsuits for years, Jesse's parents were forced to fold because they were terrified of the legal scandal and the potential for criminal charges. They signed over the house for less than half of their asking price. And it was so satisfying when Jesse pulled in the driveway and she told them he had to leave because the house had been sold.
Bought the place.
After getting Jesse his house back,
They know me, they know my
Saul turned his
voice.
attention to Walter White's massive pile of dirty cash. The
Second
car
last
wash
one, boy,
takeover.
boy,
When
babies.
Walt's earnings started piling up, Skylar realized they needed a legitimate front to launder the money. She suggested the A1A Car Wash, a business Walt understood because he had worked there for 4 years. However,
4
when
years.
she went to the owner Bogdan and his eyebrows, he hit her with a ridiculous $10 million price tag just to spite them.
With that in mind, is there a figure you can quote me? One which you think would adequately take
$10 million.
Done.
But Bogdan's arrogance made the situation personal when he mocked Walt for sending his woman to do his business and called him a coward.
$20 million.
Mr. Wallenitz,
This is the price for Walter White. He broke my air fresheners. He cursed at me, and now he wants to buy my car wash. But he's not man enough to come in here and face me himself. Instead, he sends his woman.
When Skylar told Saul about the failure, she first tried to suggest easier options like a laser tag arena. But when Skylar and Walt insisted on the car wash, Saul stopped playing nice and switched to a plan that would force Bogdan to sell. Saul sent in his associate, Kubi, to pose as a strict environmental inspector. Kubi showed up with fake equipment and discovered massive water contamination issues. The secret to the scam was Skylar, who was sitting in her car on a phone call with Kubi. As Kubi walked through the facility, Skylar fed him specific legal citations and complex environmental codes. Every time Bogdan tried to argue, Kubi would drop another violation thanks to Skylar's research, making the act look 100% official. Kubi warned him that unless he replaced his entire filtration system, which would cost almost $200,000, the government would shut him down for good.
Huh.
Sorry, same as before.
But this is not right. You cannot shut me down. You cannot do this.
Mr. Walnuts, I've checked your wastewater inside and out. I've checked your runoff gutters, and now out here, more contaminants.
So, terrified of being shut down by the government and facing bankruptcy, Bogdan, he folded, guys. He called up Skylar and agreed to her offer. By the time he handed over the keys, he had no idea he had been scammed out of his business by a fake inspector and a former employee.
Fuck you, Bogdan.
Fuck you. Fuck you. And your eyebrows.
But eventually, Jimmy's luck ran out and he found himself in a position where no amount of fast talking could keep him a free man. Reducing his own sentence. After years on the run as Gene, Jimmy was finally caught in Omaha.
Damn.
But even sitting in a jail cell, his first instinct was to pull one last Slippin' Jimmy stunt. He noticed a message on the wall that said, and it made him realize he wasn't done fighting. He called his old courthouse rival Bill Oakley and convinced him to act as his lawyer.
No matter who your lawyer is, you are screwed. So I gotta ask, where do you see this ending?
Jimmy sat down with a room full of federal prosecutors who were looking at a sentence of life plus 190 years. Then they offered him a deal of 30 years, but Jimmy didn't even blink. He asked for Hank Schrader's widow, Marie, to enter the room. Right in front of her, he put on a tearful performance, claiming he was just another victim of Walter White who acted out of fear for his life.
2 years ago, a man came into my office. He wanted one of my clients to lie. He offered me money. That night, I was attacked. That was my introduction to Walter White. There hasn't been a minute that I wasn't afraid.
No one in the room believed a word of it, but Jimmy didn't care. He coldly reminded the prosecutors that he only needed to convince one juror.
And you think jurors are gonna buy that? One. All I need is one.
Terrified of losing to Saul Goodman in court, the government folded. They negotiated his sentence down just to 7 years in a cushy prison with a golf program and weekly ice cream.
Damn.
However, on the flight to his sentencing, Jimmy found out that Kim had already come clean about Howard Hamlin's death. He realized that while he had won his freedom, he had completely lost her respect. So to get her into the courtroom, Jimmy pulled one last lie. He told the prosecutors he had new information that would incriminate Kim and knew this would force her to show up just to see what he was going to say. Jimmy then walked into the courtroom and did the one thing no one expected. He told the truth. He threw away the 7-year deal and confessed to everything.
His absolution.
That night, I saw opportunity. I shot it. Big money. And I grabbed it, and I held it tight, and for the next 16 months, my every waking moment was spent building Walter White's drug empire.
For the first time in years, he stopped being Saul Goodman and introduced himself as James McGill. He was sentenced to 86 years, but as he looked at Kim, it was clear that for once in his life, he was finally clean. But what do you think? Was Jimmy always destined to become Saul, or was he just a good man pushed too far by his brother? Let me know in the comments below. And what?
Yeah, bit of both. I'd say
You're
it's
at
a
it,
bit of
check
both.
out our other awesome video on the right side. Yep, right here. I'll even point an arrow at it so you can't miss it. All right. Thanks for watching, commenting, and have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I don't want ads. Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to see more, definitely check out TV Junkie. This video was a great watch. It was it was so entertaining, and I got to remember, and I got reminded of how tragic and also funny Better Call Saul is. Yeah, check out TV Junkie. Link in description, hopefully. And if you want to see more of me, check out my other content, and consider liking, subscribing, which I'm gonna subscribe to him. He's goated. Alright, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day / night, and I hope to see you guys again next time. Toodaloo.